Hello, everybody, and welcome to the November 12th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. Anyway, yesterday was a big deal because it was the anniversary of the 11th month, the 11th day, the 11th hour, and the 11th minute. If you do not know what that means, that was basically the end of World War I. Sometimes also called the day it fell silent and things along those lines. And many world leaders went to the graves of several individuals who died during World War I. These include people like Macron, Merkel, and even Putin. Except for one. Take a wild guess which one just couldn't. It was Donald. My mic fell over. But don't worry, I'm sure he had a very good excuse. His excuse was, it was raining. What? So wait. The President of the United States could not go to... I normally don't care about symbolic events, but this was the end of the First World War. And he couldn't go to it because it was raining. It's official. The president doesn't know what a poncho is. Nor does he know how to work an umbrella, but to be fair, we kind of already knew that. For that matter, apparently the richest man in America, according to himself, could not hire someone to hold an umbrella over him. Like, what? Just what? I don't even have like a joke for this. This is just bizarre. But the answer is really simple. Donald Trump does not care because he, make no mistake, has made it clear he's a nationalist. He is an American exceptionalist, and he does not care because, those people, he wasn't even really invited in the first place. He wasn't required to show up. Despite the fact several other presidents have gone to those events, even in the rain. I just got nothing. Anyway, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has officially been elected to Congress. I know. It took about 18 nonsense scandals, taking her words out of context, and just downright making up facts about her. However, we have finally made it there. Let's all... But then, of course, over the weekend, she just had to say something. That's really the one thing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not learned. And that is, if you're a Democrat and you say anything, you're wrong. And the right-wing news will make sure everybody knows you're wrong before they even figure out what you said. There was, of course, that time she said unemployment is not a very good measurement for the economy and phrased it in kind of a weird way. Which, on a side note, you gotta love how the only thing the government can do right is prove the economy is growing. There was that time she slightly stumbled while answering a question on a very complex geopolitical issue that has been going on for several decades. And who could forget that time she did something else? Well, now she has officially said, ready for this, that if we can afford a system that costs $47 trillion over 10 years, we could afford a system that costs $32 trillion over 10 years. How dare she? Wait a minute. That sounds completely accurate. Okay, in case you don't know what happened, she said she didn't understand the question, how are we going to pay for single payer? Because the estimates say our current healthcare plan costs $47 trillion over 10 years, while her plan would cost $32 trillion. Basically, we would just take the money people already pay in healthcare and then put in taxes and actually be able to remove some. But, okay. I don't see how that's controversial, but okay. And on a side note, you notice how I said over 10 years. That's one of the biggest lies the right's given about the single payer, which is a side note, I know. But they always just say annually, and never how long that period is. 10 years is 32 trillion, I believe. May actually be 32 billion if I'm not mistaken. No, it's 32 trillion. That's about 3 trillion a year, which to be fair may be a little bit much, who knows. But the average American already spends more than that on their healthcare as it is. So really the only objection you could have to single payer is you just don't like money going to the government, which, okay, that's an okay objection, I guess. If you want to ironically own a Don't Tread on Me flag. But then I just don't take you seriously, honestly. But okay, what else happened? Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also dared to mention she couldn't afford an apartment in one of the most expensive cities in the U.S. Yeah, last week she also mentioned how she wouldn't be able to get an apartment in Washington, D.C. until she got her congressional salary, because apartments in Washington, D.C. typically cost a lot of money. That's what happens when you live in a city. And there's no way she could get around this, other than, I guess, sleeping in her office, which is a fine decision, I guess. Because the nation's capital, where the House of Representatives is in Washington, D.C., unless she wants to move to the suburbs and just drive back and forth for 10 hours. Now, as of right now, there are also 2 recounts going on in Florida. Those being for the gubernatorial and Senate race, considering how they both reached Florida's margin of a 0.5% for a recount. That's how the system works. That is also to prevent things like errors, for instance. Or, off the very top of my head, people stealing elections by putting in incorrect numbers. However, Republicans are not very happy about it. And they have one reason. This is proof of voter fraud. Dylan from Educating Liberals, which isn't actually very educational, said, if at first you don't succeed, forge another 10,000 ballots. Democrats' new motto. For the record, they have no proof any ballots have been forged, considering how the recount isn't even over yet. This is the equivalent of me saying the Republican Party's new slogan should be, if at first you don't succeed, get a time machine, go into the future, and then rig the 2056 election. Well, how do you know that? Well, I'm magic, that's how. But okay, Charlie Kirk, you have to have a reason. He also complains about voter fraud a lot, despite the fact he supports free trade, and really there's no difference between immigrants coming here and businesses leaving. Voter fraud is a national emergency that both parties routinely ignore. A government watchdog group found that Ohio's 12th district has 170 voters who are older than 116 years old. 124 of them were born in 1800. According to public records, 72 of them voted in the 2016 election. So 72 out of a district with over 1,000 people. Oh man, this is breaking the bank. But maybe he has a point. Let's look. I mean, as we all know, Ohio's 12th congressional district in the known Democratic stronghold of Ohio went Republican by over 15,000 votes. In fact, the only election in that district that could be arguably decided by that margin was the Green Party primary election, where 181 people voted and there was only one candidate. So, good to know the dead support Jill Stein. I'm Ephrom, and good night.